Hey, what's up everybody? Stephen Williams here with RPM's Parliament team, a new member of the Parliament team for the 2022 season. Big shout out and thanks to Keith Inwood, Jackson Sullivan, and Simon Feasy down in New Zealand for bumping me up this year. I'm super excited. It's gonna be an awesome year. So yesterday I got a big stack of Frisbees on my front porch, and I've always been a pretty big fan of unboxing videos and seeing what people are throwing, kind of like the slots that they have or they're trying to fill out in their bag. So I figured I'd walk through some of the stuff that I got and talk about what I'm going to be using this year going into 2022. So first things first, let's start with putting putters. So I've got a couple of Strata Rurus here. I'm pretty familiar with the Strata Ruru. This is a disc that I used quite a bit last year. I've kind of like alternated between Magma Medium on the Ruru and Strata. So I'm excited to have a couple of these just as backups in case I want to switch over to the Strata at any point. This is a new addition and something that I'm going to be using quite a bit this year. These are Magma Hard Rurus. So as you can tell from the sound probably, these are really firm putters. I'm a big fan of stiff putters when it's hot out, and so last year I found myself getting some sweaty hands during tournaments and them sticking in my hands. So the Strata or the Magma Hard, I'm hoping is going to come out of the hand a little bit cleaner on those really hot days in the middle of the summer. So I've got 4 of those, and now let's talk about some premium plastic putters. So we've got a couple of premium Rurus here. The first one is an Atomic Ruru. This run just came out ridiculously swirly. I don't know what these guys are doing down in New Zealand, but the plastic that they're turning out is just ridiculous. It's just such a pretty disc. I'm not sure if the video does it justice, but I'm excited to throw this. I haven't really messed around a whole lot with Atomic Rurus. I've always kind of been into the Cosmic Ruru, so I'm gonna give this thing a shot and see how it flies for me. And then we've got one Cosmic Ruru. These came out really nice. It's like board flat, has some metal flakes in there, and these are the exact Rurus that I look for. I have one of these in my bag currently, and they're just workhorse putters. You can throw these pretty hard and they're not really going to turn over much. So good for battling the wind, great approach disc. That one's going in the bag for sure. Now let's talk about Tuis. So the Tui is probably one of the most beloved discs down in New Zealand. A lot of the guys down there say that it's always Tui time, and it's a great mold, man. It's just super long. It goes really far for a putter, so it kind of like has this like weird tweener spot in my bag between like almost I'll go for the Tui sometimes instead of a mid-range because I know that I can get it far enough for a lot of approach shots. It's also really great to manipulate. You can put a little bit of hyzer on this, flip it over and get it to turn. Great disc all in all. So we've got 3 Tuis in here in premium plastic. These are all Cosmic, and they're all no stamp. So no stamp on any of these, which is really sick. I don't think I've ever seen that before. So a couple of these more transparent sort of Cosmic. And then we also have this really pretty blue Cosmic that just is gorgeous. So this thing's probably gonna go in the bag just because it looks so nice. It's probably gonna fly well too, so that's always nice too. Okay, now let's talk about some mid-ranges. Let's start more overstable first and go to understable. I got a huge stack of Kias. So Kias are probably my favorite, one of my favorite molds that RPM makes. These are great workhorse mid-ranges. You can do a lot with a Kia. Super overstable, has a good amount of glide too. It almost kind of feels like it's in between like that like overstable mid and like approach overstable putter kind of slot. Love these for sidearms. I use them all the time for hyzer sidearm approaches, flex lines. All in all, just you can get a lot of different shots out of a Kia. So with that being said, I got 6 of them this year. This first one's an Atomic Kia, very pretty, kind of like swirly looking Atomic. Most of these are board flat too. You can kind of keep your eye out for the board flat ones, and those ones tend to be a little bit more on the overstable side. And then we've got 3 of these Magma Hard Kias, all of them silver with a green stamp on them. Those look amazing. This is actually the current one that I'm bagging right now, is the Magma Hard. this is a great disc, super reliable. I throw these a lot for backhand. These ones are a little bit domier, so I like the domier ones for backhand shots. So it's good to have a few backups of that one. And then we've got bread and butter right here. So these are Magma Soft Kiyas. As you can tell, they're pretty bendy. These ones also came out super flat too, which is nice to see from Magma Soft. But these ones have great grip. I love the grip on these for sidearms. That's why I always have one of these in the bag. This is probably a disc that I use multiple times every round. I know that's going to come back. It's going to be reliable. And last season, I threw one in the Columbia River during a tournament, and it was the only Magma Soft that I had. So I'm super stoked to have a couple more of those too, to replace the mistakes that I made last year. All right, so there's the Kiyas. Now let's talk about Katukus. So I've got a few Katukus here. We're going to save the really cool Katuku for last. Let's talk about these Strata Katukus. I love the Strata plastic for the Katuku because it beats in over time, and you can kind of get to a point where you can cycle these. And I just kind of love the idea that I can keep the same mold in my bag, have the same hand feel, but after one season with the Katuku, it's pretty straight when they start out really overstable. So the Katuku is like a 5502, which is pretty true to numbers as far as stability goes. Super reliable, a good amount of glide. It kind of has sneaky glide. You feel like you throw it and you're like, oh, it's pretty decent, and then like you measure it and it goes way further than you thought it did. So yeah, glad to have a couple of backup Strata Katukus. And then we have a ridiculously swirly Atomic Katuku. This thing is absolutely nuts. I don't know what the boys down there in New Zealand are doing, but the swirls that they pump out sometimes are just like absurd. So yeah, once in a while, if you're like looking around online to try to find some RPM stuff, you can find discs that are super swirly, and they actually won't stamp the top of them. They'll just stamp the bottom with a stamp that says platinum, and that's how you know you got a really good one that came out extra pretty. So keep an eye out for those. Sometimes you can find those online. But yeah, this Atomic, that's going to be a little bit more overstable than my Stratas. I'll probably work this into the bag. Sometimes there's a little bit of crossover for me between the Strata Katuku, or excuse me, the Atomic Katuku and the Kiya, but I'll find a way to make that work this year. I think it's important that I try to throw a little bit more premium plastic Katukus. All right, and then we got another disc that I'm a huge fan of. So we've got a few P Waka Wakas here, affectionately known as the P-Wak for a lot of RPM throwers. But this disc is magic. This is a disc that I really think that everybody should have in their bag. Whether you be a beginner thrower, this is going to be super straight for you, or if you have a good amount of power, you can put some hyzer on this thing, flip it up. It's going to go for a million years and never touch the ground, it feels like. Has so much glide and such a good run of disc, especially. These really clear Cosmic ones just look nuts. It's like almost see-through. So 4 of those in Cosmic there. And then I've got one of these Glow Pikas. I haven't really thrown a whole lot of Glow in the past, but I'm excited to see this is a little more overstable than the current Cosmics that I throw. So I'm stoked on those ones. Those ones are sweet. All right, now let's talk about some Fairway Drivers. Let's take a look at let's go with this little guy here. All right, I've got 4 Pika Pikas. So these Pika Pikas are the newest mold from RPM. The flight number says that they come in at a 9.5 -3.1. So kind of in that like understable fairway driver, hybrid driver kind of range. I found that the Cosmic ones are a little bit more overstable than the numbers suggest, which is a good thing. These things absolutely bomb in Cosmic. You can throw these as hard as you want. You're going to get a little bit of turn out of it, and it's going to come back at the end of the flight. I've been throwing these a ton since they came out, so happy to have a couple of Cosmics here, and then also a couple of Atomics as well. These Atomic ones I think are going to be a little bit more on the understable side, which is great because I really need a spectrum for this mold. So this one's probably going to fall into that roller kind of category, that like long turnover sort of shot. Super stoked to have those. And then we have the Kiwi. The Kiwi is an absolute monster of a disc. This thing is ridiculously overstable, but it's got a lot of usability. I throw this thing on almost knife angle sidearm hyzers or anhyzers and let that thing kind of like work out of it. You can do some pretty tricky stuff with this disc. Great for headwinds, skip shots, all kinds of stuff. So happy to have a couple more of these. I'm currently bagging a couple of atomics, so it'll be good to have a couple of those as a backup as well. And then we have the Huya. The Huya is a 7-speed fairway driver. Also, this one has the new stamp on it. Recently, RPM redid their stamps, so those things look beautiful. The flight numbers are kind of highlighted there at the top with the name of the disc and a bigger, bolder stamp. But the Huya is a disc that I don't throw a whole lot, mostly just because I have the Katuku that kind of fills that slot. I end up throwing a lot of Katukus. I asked the guys down in New Zealand to send me a couple of Huyas on the more understable side to see how those fly compared to the Katuku. So I'm excited to see how that works out. Hopefully you can kind of work these into the bag, but these ones also came out really flat too, which feels great in the hand. All right, let's see what else we got in here. So we've gone through fairways, we've gone through more hybrid kind of drivers. Let's get into the long boys. All right, let's see. We've got coteries. So the coterie is another disc where if you read the numbers, you're going to think that this is the most ridiculously overstable disc ever made. It's a 12503 as defined by the flight numbers. However, I recently found a run of these on Marshall Street that's 167 to 170, and I've been throwing those a ton, and they are ridiculous. They go so far, they turn over a little bit, and they just absolutely bomb. So when I found that run, I asked specifically for ones that'll kind of match that flight description, and they came through. They gave me a lot of just really beautiful coteries. So this 12-speed is probably going to be my workhorse driver for this season. We'll talk about the other driver that I'm going to mess with in a second here, but these are great. They go a long way. They're reliable. You can beat these in and then really get some nice hyzer flip kind of shots to turnover that just go as far as any disc I've ever thrown. So these are going to be my longest throwers this year for sure. So we've got a lot of these in different colors, all ranging from 167 to 171. So we're to get out in the field and figure out which ones do what, and then make sure we have a few of those in the bag for those windy days especially. So big stack of coteries there. And then, last but not least, we have a bunch of Kahoos. So the Kahoo, 13 speed, super fast disc, -1 turn with a 2 fade. These are one of the longest flying discs that I've ever thrown when you get a really great run of them. So when I first started throwing RPM, I actually went on infinite discs, and they have, the top rated drivers, and the Kahoo was on there as like the #2 top rated driver, and I was curious about it. And so I ordered one of those, and the first time I threw that thing, just got to flip up perfectly and got a ton of distance out of it. So that was kind of like my first introduction to RPM, and one of the reasons I started throwing them as much as I did. So yeah, pumped to have a few of these. These may look similar when you first see, but there's actually some pretty big differences between them. So let's talk about those for a second here. So here we have just your standard cosmic Kahoo right here. Pretty flat, feels great in the hand, super fast disc. So I've got a few of those in kind of the standard run-of-the-mill cosmic. And then we've got some special ones in here too. So let's talk about these four here. These ones are incredibly domey. Super domey there, a little on the lighter side. If you look at the bottom of the stamp here, or the bottom of the plate, there's a little sticker that says XG on there. XG stands for extra glide. So whenever RPM does a run of these and they come out a little bit on the domier side, they kind of mark them with this XG stamp, and what that means is that they're going to turn a little bit more and they're going to glide a whole lot longer as well. So these are amazing. One of the best runs of drivers you can get from any brand, and I love them a lot. I'm glad I have a few of these in the bag because I've lost like 3 of them in the last year, and they're hard to find in the States. So happy to have a few of these Kahoos as well. So big old stack of Kahoos, lots of Qataris, lots of Peewaks. RPM just is amazing, and they hooked me up this year, so I appreciate them. All right, so there's the stack, what I've got going on this year as far as what's in my bag. And you may be wondering, hey, I want to see you throw these. What do these actually fly like? I have news for you. So we are going to be doing quite a bit of YouTube content over the next year. My good friend Adam Petty, he's a guy that, you know, does the Spokane Disc Golf Club league with me. The dude that you always see me at the course with. We're going to be vlogging quite a bit. So I'm going to put my tournament schedule down in the description. This year's going to be super busy. We've got a lot of A tiers that we're playing. There's going to be quite possibly a trip to Am Worlds this year as well. So some of the content that we're going to be doing is things like vlogging for practice rounds. We're going to go down to Boise this weekend actually and practice for the Treasure Valley Cup, which is a pretty big tournament coming up. One of the first ones of the year. So we're going to be vlogging that. Subscribe, watch our videos. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a cool year. We're super stoked. And until then, I'll see you around.